Be a faster for the master.
Losing my religion. Next on So What?
Hi, I'm Don Waite.
And I'm Chris Dorman.
And welcome back to So What? Chris, over the last number of weeks, we've been talking about the spiritual disciplines and how they relate to us battling and killing sin in our lives. We've talked about meditation on the Word of God and prayer and solitude and silence. But we haven't talked about a really important part of this.
Something that you actually may have never even heard someone teach about before.
I know I haven't.
Fasting.
Fasting.
Isn't that some ancient practice?
Right. It sounds like something the monks do, right?
Right? Yeah. But Christians, why do I need to do that? Why would I need to fast? Right?
We should be fasters for the master, man.
That's right. The Old Testament is replete with references of the people of God fasting. Mm-hmm. There is a mandated fast, right, on the Day of Atonement, a fast over sin. We saw Moses fasting and Daniel fasting and David fasting. It was a very, very common spiritual practice.
Yep. Yep.
Now, when it comes to the New Testament, we see Jesus in the Sermon on the Mount, the Sermon on the Mount is really the to-dos of the Christian life. This is what the Christian life looks like. You want to be a Christian? Live the Sermon on the Mount. And Jesus in chapter 6 of Matthew's Gospel is talking about giving to the needy and praying. He says, so when you pray like this. When you give to the needy, give like this. And when you fast like this. The expectation is that his disciples would fast.
See, that's a big, big thing, right?
Yeah.
There was not an if in there.
Nope.
It's when.
That's right.
Because it was uncommon to find somebody, apparently, that didn't fast. And how do we know that? Well, in Matthew chapter 9, the disciples of John come and say, hey, look, why aren't your disciples fasting? This
was
is
weird.
Right?
It was weird.
It was so conspicuous they had to ask the question.
Yeah. Right.
And of course, Jesus' response was awesome.
He said, look, I'm the bridegroom, okay, and I'm still here. Because I'm still here, we're not mourning.
Yes.
We don't have to. This is the time to celebrate. This is the time to party because I'm here. But the time will come, Jesus said, when the bridegroom is taken away, then they will fast. Jesus said, when I'm gone, then it will be time to fast. And that's exactly what happened in the early church. There's so many references to fasting, it's ridiculous. And outside of the Bible and the early church. But in Acts 13 and 14 too, you'll see references to the early church fasting and praying. Beloved, we need to be about the business of fasting and praying. Now, medically, there are some people out there who can't fast. And we acknowledge that, okay? So we get it. And don't feel guilty. If you can't do it, you can't do it. That's just how God made you, and that's your situation. Okay, fine.
But you still have a good opportunity to subdue the flesh. There are so many things in our lives. We were talking about our phones earlier, Chris, and how they can take over our lives. It's like an extra appendage and all that. And it's like there's media fasts, as they call them today. Yep. You can put your phone away and say, look, I am not going to use it.
And this is not everybody. This is something for everybody. Maybe food's not your thing. Maybe food's not the thing that dulls you spiritually, that keeps you from hearing God. Maybe it's because you're so consumed with YouTube videos or something on the computer or whatever. So good things that God gives us. Yeah. Good things that now have control over you. You got to get that control back.
You brought up something really good when you said that, too. You talk about it dulls the senses.
It does.
Right? And in a very real way, you can kind of block yourself, in a sense, from really hearing the heart of God and what he wants for you. So when we're seeking God's face on big decisions like we were dealing with this week, and we got together and we were talking, and we got some decisions to make, and we're praying about it. It's like, you know what? We need to fast.
Yeah. Because we did, and we needed to, because we just weren't hearing what we needed to hear. Think about here in the United States, we're about to celebrate Thanksgiving, which is just a big, huge gorge fest, okay? It's just a big, huge national feast. And what happens after you finish that feast? Everybody, right? We have to sleep. We fall asleep in front of our TVs watching football or listening to grandma talk, right? But that's what happens to us spiritually when we have too much food. That's what happens to us spiritually when our flesh runs us. We fall asleep spiritually. We fall asleep spiritually, beloved. Yeah. I don't know about you, but I want to hear God. I want to be able to hear and obey. And as I've been intentionally striving to battle against sin, and as he brings more and more things to the surface, I'm realizing how much my flesh still runs my life.
Yeah.
And it's disgusting to me. And I just can't stand it. And I won't anymore.
When Jesus started his ministry, right? His ministry was all about, I am here to do the Father's will. So when the Son of God starts his ministry, he starts by going into the wilderness and fasting for 40 days.
Right. Now, when you read that, some of you, and of course it says the tempter came and Jesus was hungry, and you might read that and think, oh gosh, Jesus was at his most vulnerable then. Jesus was really physically weak at that point, spiritually probably too. Gosh, what's he going to do? What's he going to do? How's he going to respond? But I was reading a book by Dallas Willard, The Spirit of the Disciplines, and he says, that time in the wilderness when Jesus was at his strongest, because he was wholly dependent on the Father, completely yielded unto the Father, so that he could surrender and go without food for 40 days. And still, when he's tempted by Satan, say no, 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 and hell no.
Yeah.
No.
Because when I am weak, then he is strong. Why? Because his strength is made perfect in my weakness.
Yeah.
So that's when we hear the voice of God, man.
Yeah.
When we are able to say no to the flesh and say, no, and I'm going to seek his heart. And I realize that my hunger for God and my need for that hunger for God is so much greater than food.
That's right. That's right.
Or any of these other things. The media fast, like we're talking about some of these other things that take up all of our time.
I know some of you can't get away from YouTube videos. You watch them for hours and hours at a time.
Thanks for tuning in.
And what we're talking about fasting from are good things that God gives us that take over our lives and keep us from maybe even more important things.
Yep.
And maybe your spiritual senses have become dull because you're allowing your flesh to reign unchecked.
Right.
And fasting is a surefire way to tell your flesh no, because that's exactly what you're doing. You're saying, flesh, you do not run me.
Right.
God does. I only want Jesus to run my life. I don't want my flesh to run me.
Right.
I don't. Do you? I mean, really?
My God is not my belly.
That's
God
right.
is my God.
That's right.
Not my body.
We do not want our God to be our stomachs, beloved. We don't. We don't. Thank you for tuning in, my friends, and I'll talk to you next week.
See you soon.
I think that was good.
Yeah, really good.
It was a good take. You stopped the tape, right?
Yeah, that's not really good. Oh, is it recording?